So September cometh, and all the kids who've come to the end of their school holidays are now returning to the place of education, and mothers and fathers will be scuttling off to the uniform shop in order to make sure that they've got the necessary trousers and shirts and blazers and ties and the correct colour socks and the right types of shoes and possibly caps or hats or mortarboards. Do they wear mortarboards? No, I don't think they do. I think that's an incredibly old hat and ridiculous thing to say. But it is that time, isn't it? Kids are going back to school. I know some kids have gone back this week, and there'll be others going back next week, and the anticipation of a new year ahead from September to July, and the excitement. Those kids that are going to a brand new school, for example, the trepidation of that. What's it going to be like? Will I make any friends? Are any of my friends going? Will I get on with the teachers? Is it going to be big, too big? Will I get lost in it? There's a lot of things going through kids' minds at this time of year. And, of course, one of those things is they have to dress appropriately for school, because the schools all have their own special policy, don't they? We have our policy, you must wear this. Schools, I think, have become a lot more dictatorial in more recent times. I do remember that when my children went to school some few years ago now, the schools were very hot on getting the parents to sign off things and say you agree to their terms and conditions. You agree to make sure the kids do the homework that they've been set. You agree that they'll come to school in a smart and orderly fashion and that they won't be late and all this. We'd never had that when I was at school in the 1970s. There was no notion of that, although I do remember going to an all-boys comprehensive school wearing a horrible nylon blazer, a shirt, a tie, black or grey trousers, I think it was, and some shoes. The great advantage there was that the blazer was purchasable from places like Marks and Spencer's, and you could get a little badge which had to be sewn on. One of your parents had to be at least coherent in sewing in order to sew this thing on. But I gather that some schools will say, no, you can't just buy any old blazer, but you've got to buy our blazer, and it's only available from this outlet. And the outlet only does these sizes anyway, and it's going to be machine embroidered with the name of the school. Or you've got to wear this specific hat. Only this company will make this hat for us. It's a bright yellow hat with a red trim or whatever it is. And it's very prescriptive. And in this day and age, this modern day and age, I just wonder whether the school uniform is really as relevant or as necessary as we're all led to believe. And it started to make me think. I was chatting to the lovely Julia this morning over breakfast, and I said to her, I suppose the kids have got to go back to school. And she said, yeah, we've got to get down and get all these uniforms together. And there are only certain places. And, of course, you've got to order something. It's got to be in by a certain time. And they're quite expensive. And if you're on a very limited budget, as so many people are, especially now with the cost of living crisis all amongst us and people's fuel bills going up, and they're making the decision, or soon will be, between heating and eating, those people, and people can't go out and enjoy themselves in the same way, there's going to be a certain limitation of things that they can actually spend money on. And it started to make me think, well, these uniforms is not really an absolute essential thing. And I started also to wonder what the point of uniforms were. I can get the point if you're in the army or the RAF or the Navy, that there is a sense of why you want everybody to look the same, some sort of autonomous fighting machine, almost drone-like, that you're all these neutral, you've had everything, your own personalities taken out of you, and so that you are a representative of a military force. And also it helps if the enemy know who you are and that you know who the enemy are. Although, of course, a lot of those tactics seem to be disappearing when you get into guerrilla warfare, and you never quite know who is the enemy and who isn't the enemy. But at least back in the old days of the Second World War and the First World War, the nasty lot wore a nasty colour and the good lot wore a lovely, jolly colour, and you knew where you were. So I see the point of uniforms in a military setting, or indeed for a service like the police. It's good to see if the police are wearing a decent uniform, or even the railway service, and doctors and nurses are wearing something that is sensible for their employment, for their task, for their business, for their service. Something that is that gives that sense of authority, that you know who they are, you can distinguish one person from the other, and you know exactly what they're about and what you expect from them. And I suppose to an extent that's been handed down to children, that when they go to school, we also then want to say, right, you are now no longer just a child or a young person, you are a school child. You are, you're wearing the uniform of that school. So if you're out and about, if you're skiving, for example, we know who it is who's skiving because they've got the school uniform on. We immediately know from which school you go from, and it may be a good thing. But at the same time, is it good to knock out a child's individual sense of who they are by dressing them all up identical as if they were a military service or a police service I mean, they're not a service, are they? They're not a service. They are individuals who are learning to go and face the world. Now, I understand that what you're kind of doing is trying to drill into kids as part of the education that when you get into the world, we've got to be smart, we've got to dress sensibly, applicably to the sort of work that we're doing, and we're trying to instill that sense of being proud of yourself and standing up to the plate, as it were, instead of looking shoddy and messy and all of that. I get all that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Of course, that's very important. I think kids need to be drilled a bit in that way, that it's important that they have a sense of dressing up so that when they leave school and they go for those very important interviews to get a job, they know that, yeah, you smarten your tie, you put on your jacket or your dress or whatever it is, that you, depending on your, the sex of the person, whatever the type of clothing it is, and you're not dressing in a very sort of weird and strange and unapplicable fashion for the job that you're going. I get all of that. But do poor mothers and fathers and families who are strapped for cash really have to go and have this quite unnecessary expense? It was hard when I was bringing up the kids with my ex-wife at the time, Dawn, for us to afford. We had 3 children. And you may say, well, it's your own bloody fault for having 3 kids. And you may be right. But we had 3 kids. It's the way of the world, and so we had to get 3 sets of blazers and 3 sets of white shirts. And it's not just one shirt, is it? It's not like one of everything that you have. The kids, particularly boys, they go through trousers, at the knee where they're falling over, they graze themselves, they're on all fours, they're mucking about climbing trees and all of this sort of thing. They go through trousers ever so much. And some kids, of course, are more prone to being in an awkward situation than others, and some kids will sweat more than others, and so they may find their shirts are a little bit more stinky than others, and so they need an army of shirts and all of this. And you just wonder the expense that some people are having to go through to put these uniforms together so that they can fit what the school is dictating to them how they should look. And I just think this is a little bit wrong. I mean, we have this government diktat to tell us that kids, if you're not going to educate the kid at home, you've got to send him to school. Okay, so you've got to send him to school. And so then you don't get the choice of schools these days. You don't get that much of a choice unless you can afford a private school. You've got to take the school that you've been allocated. And then that school that you've been allocated is going to dictate to you exactly what that child should wear. And you may not be able to afford it. So, it's tough. It's just tough. Now, what would be wrong? I understand that you don't want kids just to turn up in jeans and branded T-shirts and chains and, tattoos and lip things and nails through their ears and all of that. You don't want any of that. I understand that. So you couldn't possibly have a free-for-all because it would be He would probably be giving the wrong message. It would influence other children who had never thought about having a safety pin through their nose or whatever, or a tattoo on their thing, or as sometimes you get when kids are going through certain stage of their development. There's some kids are perhaps more sexually aware and other kids, and wearing lower top things and thrusting things out, and you're trying to sort of get rid of all of that, because you just want the kids to be in a receptive state so that you can do your best as a teacher or as an educator to bring them knowledge so that they can then go forward and face the world. I understand all of that. That all makes perfect sense. But do they have to wear this rigid uniform? Could they not? Could you not just simply say, look, we want you to come in this sort of easy uniform, if you like. It's an easy uniform. It's not too specific. You just need to have a simple shirt. A simple shirt that can be pretty much any colour. We're not too worried about the colour, but no stripes, just one uniform colour on the shirt. So not like me where I've got stripes, but just say a blue shirt or a red shirt or a green shirt, whatever it is. Just a simple shirt. It must be buttoned up. That's not asking too much, with sleeves. Especially in the winter. You could have a short sleeve version in the summer. That would be fine. Maybe, you don't need to ask them to wear ties or cravats or neckerchiefs or any of that sort of nonsense. Maybe that is a bit unnecessary. If it's cold, they may want to wear some sort of jumper. Again, a plain jumper, maybe a V-neck or a polar neck. That would be fine. Or a sweatshirt, but no hoodies. But plain, unbranded. So, because if you send a kid with one brand, then the next kid will go, oh, that's a crap brand. You should have worn the so-and-so brand. They're the in thick. So you don't want brands. You just want something very plain. It gives the opportunity for parents to go and buy something, if they don't have a lot of money, a cheap something. And others, if they want to lavishly spend a lot more. But on the whole, they are just garments to keep the kids warm, and they're not projecting too much, and they're not saying that this person has a very expensive uniform and has everything, and this person has just got the cheap, horrible nylon uniform with a bit of pen mark to say the so-and-so school or whatever. I get that the uniforms are trying to sort of get rid of the overall class thing, and you're just trying to make everybody the same. But I don't know that that's necessarily such a good idea. Again, with trousers, you could just say, look, okay, boys are going to wear trousers, girls will wear skirts. You could just say, look, it doesn't matter if girls wear trousers, that's fine, because girls can wear trousers. We're not entertaining the idea that boys wear skirts, unless you're wearing a kilt and you're up in Scotland and it's part of a clan school of some description where everybody wears kilts. It's an irrelevancy to this debate or conversation. And just sensible shoes. No high heels, just flat shoes or shoes with a very small heel, sensible shoes. And you could have a very simple brochure or put it on the website. These are the type of things. So that you don't have those kids who are feeling a bit out of it already on the first day of school, and their clothes are not quite, I haven't got I went to the shops and everybody's bought the same black pair of shoes, and all kids are in size, whatever the size 8 or 7 or whatever it is. And they're all wearing the same. And so the shop has run out. And the poor parent who's left it too late because their money hasn't come in, and they've had to spend money elsewhere, and they say, no, I will get the uniform. But just had a million and other things to do during the summer holidays. And now it's time, the week before school, and there's no shoes left, and I haven't got money to get in a car, or I don't have a car. That's the only shop I can go to, etc., etc. I can't afford to order it online, or for whatever reason. And then the poor kid turns up in some knackered old trainers, which are sort of not quite the right colour, and they turn up at school, and already the teacher's going, well, you can't come in wearing those. And, clearly you're making that kid feel intimidated right before they've even started. They've gone to school to be educated, not to feel intimidated or belittled because of the financial situation or the incompetence of their parents. It's not the kid's fault. So make it easy for them. Make it easy. That's what I would say. But what would you say? Perhaps you're more rigid in your thought process and you say, no, the point of the uniform is this. I mean, it may be that the school could. I mean, if the school provided the uniform, that would be a completely different argument, wouldn't it? But of course, there's no money. Schools don't have the money to buy the uniforms. But they could buy those uniforms, which they look after, and they issue them to the kids for school photographs, for outings, for any public display where the kids will, and then the uniforms go back to the school. Okay, they've got to be dry cleaned and all of those sort of things. But there would just be one set of uniforms which could be used for years, and the school could use all of those. That way, the kids haven't got to worry about that. They come in basic clothes, simple clothes, no jewelry, no this, that, and the other, and just wear, something very plain and something which, if they like a certain colour, if they're into purple or red or green and that's their thing, they're expressing themselves, but not with stripes and this, that, and the other, torn this and all of that. To me, that makes a perfect lot of sense. You get the kids in, they're feeling comfortable in themselves as best they can. They've got a whole load of other things, going on in their life, and you're trying to get them there to be educated at school. Be interested in your thoughts. What do you think about the uniform situation? Is it essential? And why can't the schools provide those? If they want to see them in the school photographs or on open days or visits to museums and this sort of thing, then they could issue them with a set of things, and they know the sizes they've got. And once they've invested in these items, they'd be there for ages, because the kids are only going to wear them for a few hours, and then they come back. Admittedly, you'd want them to be washed, and there would be a fee there. But what's to stop the school buying a washing machine? And I know you'd have to then employ someone to go through and do it, but there's a lot of things that could be done to help the situation. These are just silly ideas that I've got. Maybe you completely disagree, and I'd love to hear them. Put your comments in the comments below, and we'll look at some of those tomorrow. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that at coming up to 17 minutes. Let us have a shufty now at some of the comments that we had from yesterday. About scammers. If you may remember, we were talking about, have you been scammed? Would you play along with the scammers when they ring you up and try and flog you stuff, or try to get your account number and bank number? What did you say? Well, let's have a quick look here. Shirley Lynch says, you should write a book, Richard. You had me laughing at your antics with the scammers. If you wrote a book, it would be a bestseller. Well, that's very kind of you. Another great chinwag. Thank you very much, Shirley. I enjoyed that one very much. Just Be Happy says, love your ingenuity in dealing with these spamming calls. I just don't answer the phone if it's a number I don't recognise, and that's probably the best policy, isn't it? Probably the best policy is not to engage in them, just in case. Can't bring myself even to engage in these people, she says, and that makes perfect. I say she, it might not be a she, I beg your pardon if you're not. Kay Dean says, hi Richard, this was great and very entertaining. We have a call display on our home phone, so we block a lot of numbers. A number came up once and it looked very familiar. Then I realised that it was our own phone number. So I had to call block that. So you can't call yourself with your own phone. How extraordinary is that? Thank you. Take care and stay well. From Kathy. Thank you very much, Kathy, for that. Stuart in Guildford says, it was a while ago, but I signed up to receive more information from a business, and I had a gut instinct that they would sell my contact info. I ticked the box for no further contact by them or third parties. Yes, I've seen a lot of these things. And then wrongly changed my title from Mr. to Sir. About 12 months passed, and I received mail to Sir Stuart. Except I couldn't remember what business it was, and which one I gave the details from the phone number wrong to correct the contact. That is lovely. So it's lovely to, so I should do that. I'm thinking I might put Lord Vobes. If next time I fill in something, you say, yes, it's Lord Vobes, thank you. And I wonder if you ring up someone and you say, my name is Lord Vobes. You could change your first name to Lord by default. So you could actually be, or just, you don't actually have to change your name by deed poll. You can just change your name and be known as, and be otherwise known as type thing. No, but that's fascinating. Lovely. I love that. Talking about ghosts, and it's all a bit spooky. Michael White says, Richard, there is a God. You only have to look around at his creation. It's mathematically impossible for all this to come about by accident. You could put the parts of a watch in a box and shake it for 1,000,000 years, but it still wouldn't put itself together. Well, maybe 2,000,000 years it might. I don't know. Is it? I mean, that is an argument that I've heard many times, that when you look around all of this, it's impossible to think that it just happened. But it didn't just happen. That's the way I look at it. None of this just happened. But if you go, and I don't really want to get into this, but if you go down the fact that there is a God, there's so many variations of what that means. Does it mean that there's a benign God who's looking after us and listening to each and every one of us when we say, please, please help me. What have I done wrong? I've tried to obey everything. I've tried to be really good. Why does tragedies happen to children who've never done a thing wrong, and they've been taken, their lives have been snuffed out? What was the point of putting the parent through 9 months of having a child and the expectation that the parents would have that? What would be the point? So if there is a God, the only conclusion that I come back from is, if there's a God who's conscious of us moving about, he's very vindictive, because he will treat some very well and he'll treat others very badly. And to my mere mortal mind, my human mind, when I think about that, I think, well, he's not looking at our lives from our point of view. He may be looking at it from some higher echelon, some elitism, but he's not looking at it from our point of view. You would think, hang on a minute, there's these grooming gangs who are murdering and raping and doing some bloody awful things to these poor girls, working class girls, in numerous cities around England at the moment, and they're getting away with it, and they're not being charged, and this is happening across the world. And you just think, well, if there was a God that cared, that is a benign God who loves us, why the hell would he be doing it? So in the end you just think, no, I'd rather go to the shuffling the bits of a watch in a box. I'd rather believe that than to believe that there was anything that was going to just have, you could pray to him as much as you like, but it's hit and miss whether you actually get his attention. But, I'm not insulting you. At least I hope I'm not insulting you, Michael. Everyone's entitled to their belief, and this is just my reaction to it. I just can't find that could possibly be true. Irvin70, talking about scammers, says, good evening, Richard. I had this call. Hello? Have you had an accident? Yes, I died. They hung up, and that day I got 3 more calls to see if I had an accident, and no more calls about accidents, just a boiler one. Yeah, can you imagine? Yeah, I did have an accident. I'm afraid I got decapitated when my head went through the window. But it's okay. I can still take phone calls and I can still talk to you. But just, my lung capacity is pretty limited, actually. Dig of the Dump says, in terms of I got rid of my television, he says, my story on benefits, not paid, got fined and never returned, spent the fee. Says sometimes if you don't use punctuation, it's very difficult to read your comments. My story on benefits, not paid, got fined, never returned, spent the TV fee on a PC. GL, hello, YouTube, by the leech that it is. I'll let you work that out. I think I got to the point of that. Anthony Conti says, love and support your fully politically incorrect comments. Indian call centers. Yes, I'm sorry, but you've got to say what it is, haven't you? I mean, we can't live in a world in which you can't say what it is. If the truth is there, we should be free to speak the truth, even though some people might be offended by the fact that you're speaking the truth. So, Indian call centers in the UK and Panama, the callers are Colombians. Love your comments. Thank you, Anthony. Very much appreciate that. Mary Fennell says, my answer is always no. Are you the homeowner? No. Is there a homeowner available? No. Will the homeowner be back later? No. Is this a rented property? No. They soon give up. Failing that, I just tell them to bugger off, and that seems to be the best way to do it. 2 more and we'll go. As It Was says, this is one of the funniest chats I've watched. I was literally in hysterics, done similar, but nowhere near as good as you. Thank you very much, Tony. Embarrassingly, I have almost been caught. My internet was really playing up and I got a text saying that my system had been hacked. In a panic, I called the number and allowed them on my computer. It's so easily done. Do not be upset. They showed me graphics, went through my Amazon and eBay stuff, and then asked me for my bank details. Well, I'm not giving you that, I said. I'm not stupid. Then they said my online banking was at risk. I don't do online banking, I said. Well, that shook them. How do you bank then, they asked. Well, I pop down the road and go to my bank and talk to the lovely people behind the counter and it's all sorted. You know, like they used to do. They hung up. As well, all was well, and they got nothing. My lesson, don't do internet banking. I do as little, I do a bit of internet banking, but I do not do any banking on my phone. I don't know why. I feel that's even more likely to be hacked. And finally, Anne Osborne says, thank you, Richard. You made me laugh today. Loved your spam stories. Brilliant. That's what it's all about. A little bit of entertainment in the daytime. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to put a like and a comment. And I want to know what you think about school uniforms. What was it like in your day? Did you have to wear a specific thing? Was it impossible? Did you like it? Did you rebel against the school uniforms? Were you one of these people? You often see these kids with their what do you call them? The blazers dragging along the floor or bundled into a bag all screwed up. Did you have any? Or were you proudly wearing your school uniform? Be interested to hear about that too. Anyway, thank you for listening. Take care. And no doubt I'll be back again tomorrow. Look after yourselves and thanks again. Bye for now.